this is the community follow-up and Q&A session Wednesday, and it is 12:30 UTC plus 2. It's 10:30 UTC, and this is one of our 3 community follow-up meetings that we are hosting every week here at Agile Ventures. So for some reason I was getting into some technical issues. The setup that I usually have when I stream here from Gothenburg, and the Valborg Ventures office that they so generously allow us to use, is not working, or was not working. I had to reboot my computer, but I just did, so we should be okay. Right, we should be good to go. And just for your information, we do have live Google Meet open that you can tap into. And follow along on, or if you want to go in and then chat by audio, that is perfectly fine to do that. Let me just get my systems up and running. Sorry, before I can get this this started. All right, so we have at least a few of our members listening in on Twitch. Welcome, guys. A little bit of a follow-up. What has been going on? The usual stuff that I mention is that we are making small updates to the website one project. The website one project at Agile Ventures is of course the one that powers this website that I just put out on screen, which is our main main website. We are dealing with some performance issues. We are deploying this site using Heroku, and we noticed that there must be some memory leaks, which is quite interesting challenge to come to grips with. Let me see if I can put this up on screen. There is this very weird situation where progressively the app is using more and more memory as we move forward, and that's a bit of a problem for us. So let's go to website one. We go to the production site on Heroku. This is the Heroku dashboard interface. For those of you who haven't seen this one, it's a fantastic platform as a service provider. And if we look at metrics over the last 24 hours, for instance, at 6:30 p.m. last night, I did a reboot of the dynos, and since then we are progressively going up from 50% to around 75%, which is not that bad actually. It used to be worse, but I don't know if this is about traffic or what it is that is happening. But after a while, I need to restart the dynos again in order to come down in performance. Heroku itself had some delays apparently. Yeah, we did a dyno restart. I'm actually gonna do a restart again, so we can come down in memory usage and see what that leads to. So restart our dynos, and this means half a minute or something of downtime, so we can't really use the website at the moment, but we are not doing it anyway, so that's all good. All right, so that's one thing. Another thing worth mentioning is that there are still some spots open on the summer camp, Work the Web summer camp. I can't pull up this information on screen right now because this application is restarting. Oh, it did came up here. Oh, there's a mismatch here. Interesting. We need to fix that. So we are we're still recruiting for this camp. It will go live July the 6th, with 2 sessions a week, 1.5 hour long, and then 2 sessions per weekend that are 2 hours long each, with co-study and support and so on, right? And there's no costs involved. If you want to learn the basics about web development, you can definitely sign up for this course. And you do that by becoming a member of Agile Ventures community, which is free, doesn't cost you anything, and sending off an email to applications@agileventures.org, where you write a short letter and describe to us why you want to learn web development, who you are, and so on. So that is definitely happening soon. I'm very excited about that. We are in preparation mode for this camp. It's the first iteration of this training. We'll see what it leads to. I have extensive experience from leading boot camps, full-time accelerated training. I've not been involved in part-time training before, so we'll see where we land. But we have a very ambitious agenda for this training program, and we hope to achieve a lot. So feel free to apply and read more about Craft Academy, that is our partner in this endeavor, and so on. Right, we do have a new streamer that is sponsored by us, and that is Verena. She is doing Flutter on Twitch. She's not online at the moment, but do check her out and look at her previous streams, follow her, and see if this is something for you. And if you are into web development or mobile development, knowing Flutter is definitely a good skill to have. So check her out, and do not forget to follow Ark Anya, which is another streamer that is currently on vacation right now, but she is definitely a great advocate for Agile Ventures, and she will be one of the teaching assistants on the summer camp that we will be running. Right, so I've been busy doing or preparing for some projects, and I actually wanted to talk to you about one. There is a project that Agile Ventures has been running for a year, and that is the Community Health West London website, which is all about self-care and connecting residents and health professionals with different non-profits and the services they offer. And so one thing that they've been building was this functionality, and that is a search interface for various services in West London. And this one is based on a long-running project of Agile Ventures that is called Local Support, and it was basically a search engine for non-profits in London altogether. It originated from Harrow, I think, like 6-7 years ago, and it was actually the first project that Agile Ventures was involved in. Many people have been working on that, and so on. And so a year ago or a year and a half ago, they kind of pivoted this a little bit into serving another customer and using this, or reusing this code base for a different purpose. And so what you see on screen now is like an embed of that interface into this website. And I had a few meetings with the clients regarding this, and together with Ethan and Mike from Agile Ventures. And the client is generally not really happy with the solution, but that's what they bought. So that's one thing, right? But I am personally not really happy with this solution either. I don't think we're delivering any really good value here, and B, it's extremely hard to maintain because of the fact that this is legacy code that was never supposed to be used in this way, that has been tweaked to kind of fit into this interface. Um, but when I opened up the local support project and started to code on this again, it was a jungle. It took me 9-10 hours to just get it into a green state in terms of tests. It's a very well tested solution, so that's okay. But I am not really super duper happy about this, right? And I had a sense that this could be done much simpler and in a much better way. So we had a few discussions with the client. This is a community project. It's a paid project, so anyone that is involved in working on this one can actually invoice us or actually get paid one way or another for the time and effort. And of course, these projects are reserved for associate members of Agile Ventures and people with good experience, so that they actually know that we know that they can deliver good quality, right? But I had a sense that I could do this better. And what we are doing in this project for KCSC, it's Kensington and Chelsea Social Council, right? Kensington and Chelsea Social Council, is that we are tapping into their API, pulling up a list of services that are available in their neighborhood or area, and just present it using a search interface, right? And so what I kind of tried to do was to simplify this. So what I came up with yesterday, oh sorry, that's not right, was another solution to this. So I built a small API yesterday that fetches the data. This is a Rails application that I scaffolded yesterday, and it fetches the data from the KCAC services. Now there's some naming ambiguity because that API is also called KCSC, but they have a specific API that lists all services in JSON format in a slightly weird way, to be honest, because they actually have 2 endpoints, so that was a bit problematic. But what we can do is to fetch those things and save them into our own database. And this solution is actually taking almost line by line from the original local support project built by other developers at Agile Ventures a while back. I did refactor this into a module rather than a class, but that's just technical stuff. And so we're fetching that JSON and storing these things into our own database with a service, with a model that is called service, with all the necessary information, and that is done over here. So we have a service module here, and we get this stuff and we geocode this based on the address, if there is an address. But other than we just don't geocode it. The quality of the data that we get from the client is not very good and not very consistent. So, there are 337 instances listed on that API at the moment, and I think only 100 or so, 100 plus could be geocoded, if I remember correctly when I worked on this yesterday. So we do that, we geocode, and then we basically open up 2 endpoints. And that could be shown by config, right? Config and routes. And we we keep some analytics. I was playing around with that as well. But we open up a services index action and also an ability to search for for services, which is good. And that is the thing that is mostly interesting on this one, because the whole purpose, as I mentioned before, of this website is to have the residents of Kensington and Chelsea to be able to search for services, or health professionals that want to direct the patients, I guess, to certain activities in order to improve their health, right? So these are the kind of services we're talking about here. So the search functionality was imperative. Now, instead of doing a very crude search function that did basically an active record, like looking through the database for certain aspect, based on a query that a user sends in, I was more interested in using a search engine functionality, and so what I did was to research Elasticsearch. Right, so let's see if we can put that up. What is Elasticsearch? Well, it's a quite powerful open sourced solution to add search functionality to your applications one way or another. They are currently in release 7.13 and so on, so you should definitely check out Elastic if you are interested in search functionality. And name dropping: Netflix, Uber, Slack, Twilio, Microsoft. So big companies are using this technology, and I thought that this technology would be interesting for us to use. So there are two main wrappers around Elasticsearch for Rails, and again, this is a Rails application, so I needed something like that. One is called I think it's called Elasticsearch Rails, probably. Yeah, that was a very nice name. And the other one is called Chewy. That's a weird name, isn't it? Chewy. The thing is with Chewy that it is a high-level wrapper, so it's much easier to implement than Elasticsearch Rails. And I probably need to search for Chewy Gem and not just Chewy. Right. And since time was of the essence here, and I really like rapid application development, I enjoy doing things fast with good quality. So apart from reusing parts of the code base that we used in another project just a week ago or so, with a lot of setup and so on already done for me, I thought I'll look into Chewy and see if we can get that to work. And I did get it to work. So the question is, should I show you the effect of my work first, and then, for those who might be interested in knowing how I did it, talk you through a solution, or should I do vice versa? Chat, what do you think? Should you see a demo first of this functionality, or should I talk about the implementation itself? You never know. You never know. Let's see. We're going to show the functionality. So I have this application deployed to Heroku as well, and let's say that I just want to list all services. And so I will be using Postman. I do not have an interface built around this yet, so I will be using Postman to hit my own API, which is something that you guys can do too if you want. I can send you a link to this application. Now, if I want to hit all the services available, I make a GET request to the URL kccapi.herokuapp.com/API/services. And if we send this off, we will inevitably get those services. And as you can see, there's quite a few of them. Right, can I close this? Yeah, I can close it. Can I increase the font? I don't know if I can. I should probably do this so I don't hide my... right, let's move this out of the way. Right, so we get all the services. As you can see, there are very big variations in quality of the data. We get the name of the service, description. If we got a phone number from the council, then we display it. Otherwise, we just return null. There is usually an email, a website, and an address and a postcode. And if there is an address and a postcode, then we can geocode this to get the latitude and longitude, because displaying those services on a map are important. However, as you can clearly see in this first object, there is no latitude and longitude because we didn't get an address and postcode. So there's nothing for us to show. On the second object, on the other hand, we did get an address, partial address. We only got a postcode. But based on the postcode, we can still pinpoint where this organization is located, and we can show it on the map. Not very accurately, but nonetheless we can show it. So we have a lat and long on this guy. If we take a look at the third one, that is called active for L for live. Well, okay. Again, we didn't input this data. We haven't. We're not responsible for the content. These guys had both of an address and a postcode, and this latitude and longitude is more relevant and accurate. So we will be able to show them on a map in a very good way. And so again, as I said, the data varies quite a lot. So that would be just the index action. But what we want to be able to do is to search for activities, right? So what we were able to do yesterday is to set up a search endpoint that takes a post request, actually, and a query key that uses Q as the key name, and then a value. So let's search for football. Perhaps there are some football activities in this area. Well, apparently there is. We have Football Friday, and we have Boys Football Club, and we have open age men's only activities. Okay, so where does this football come into play? Well, in the first two, the word football was present in the name of the service. On the third one, it does the description contains the word football, so we're searching through the description and not the name. And so in the next one, we have football both in the name and the description, and so on and so forth, right? So just to show you that the search is actually not searching through specific fields, or looking for a specific content in a specific field, but it does a multi field search through the database and returns that. Now let's see if we search for self-care, right? We send this off, and here we are getting results like LGBT mental health advocacy. That does contain self-care here in this description. The same thing goes for this one somewhere, right? It needs to contain or a care, right? Exactly. This is my point, because it does search for the appearance of some of the words. We're using something called fuzzy search, which doesn't necessarily only search for the query itself, but for contextual things and words related to that, which is really important if we would misspell something, for instance, right? Or if we want to do a more loose search and so on. So let's go back to the football example, right? If we misspell football, instead of foot, we just say this, we should still get some results. And we do, right? We still get Football Friday, and so on. And this wouldn't have been possible if I did a regular database query just by going over the records in the database. Even if I could do a multi-field search, fuzzy searching would not be possible to do. And it's pretty fast, and it relies on a few underlying technologies, like of course Elasticsearch, but also Redis and so on, and will make it much easier for us to build a good service for the Kensington and Chelsea Social Council, or whatever it was called. What is it called? Social Council, right? And after talking to the client yesterday, we kind of agree that we don't need this fairly extensive search functionality, like type of activity or location or self-care categories or anything like this, because if we have a good search functionality in place, we can cover all of this and filter this later on, should we want to do that. But the main use case is for residents to be able to do a search and not health professionals. Health professionals could be considered to be more receptive to more advanced interfaces, but we want to build something that is user-friendly, and therefore we're going to keep this we're going to put some effort into redefining the search and add some more features to that from get-go, rather than presenting the end users with a lot of choices here that we think will not make any sense or will not increase the usage of this feature, but rather scare people away. Right. Now, another thing that is confused, in my opinion, with this solution is that not all, as you saw, not every service is displayable on the map, because we simply lack the latitude and longitude, and we need that in order to show a marker. So one thing that we want to do is to limit the visibility of this map unless the user really wants to see it. So we will present a list of results and then an icon saying show on map, if it is possible to actually display the service on a map. So that's pretty much covers the way of thinking that was behind this development. And if you would like to try this out, you can definitely let's see how that was a post request. You can definitely try this URL. I would send it in chat, so on Twitch, of course. And if you have access to something like Postman, where you can do post requests, you can't do it in a browser. The first link is accessible from a browser, but if you want to try the search, then you're gonna have to use Postman or some other application that allows you to make post requests, and then just add a search query, you know, elderly services, for instance. Like, what would that give us? Again, quite a few results based on those 337 entries we have in our database. So let's search for befriending. Right, Better Life Befriending. This is a family befriending program that will focus on helping blah blah blah, right? So I will send this link to you guys as well. It uses a query parameter, but again, remember that this needs to be a post request. So you can check it out. So how do we do this? Was this hard to do? Well, no. I think I worked for like approximately 8 hours. No, not even that. Sorry, 4 hours on this. So let me just tell you a little bit about the underlying technology, or how I implemented this. Now, in terms of libraries that I used, very simple. I included the gem Chewy, as I already mentioned, and the gem geocoder. That is the library that will help us use or help us get the latitude and longitude based on some specific data. In this case, it's going to be the address. I created an index. So in my app folder, I have a new subfolder called Chewy, which is probably a new addition or a surprise to many Rails developers that are looking, because that's not part of the application usually. But here in the services index, I'm telling the Elasticsearch engine what to look for or what to index. So the index scope is very simple. It's all services. So we just say index scope service. And then we tell the Elasticsearch engine to look at name, description, website, telephone, and email. And we tell them what sort of text this is. And this is a very, very basic implementation. At this stage, you can expand on this if you want. I really went for the lowest hanging fruit on this one, but there are plenty of settings that you can play with on this index. And this is basically it. The only thing that I need to do is I think I need to tell the model to update the index called services on self. So every time we are instantiating a new service, it, apart from coming to life and being created, it also updates the index that we just took a look at. And that is pretty much what we need to do. The only thing that it was left for me in implementation, testing is another issue, I will talk about that a little bit, was to build a controller that will take that search query, and I wrapped this in a create action. And again, this is default settings in Rails. A create action always takes a post request. And what I do is, when the create action is being invoked, I import the result of the service index, and I query that index using a multi-match setting, and telling it that the query we will be using for looking for or using in this one, will be whatever the user sent in this queue parameter that you can see as part of the URL, and then look into these fields: name, description, email, website, and telephone, and then that we set this to be a fuzzy search in itself, right? So that we can get those different results. Right. Let me just also on Twitch. Right. So if we get anything back from the search result, we just make sure to serialize this collection. Sorry. And for that, I'm using an extension to Rails that is called active model serializers. And so I'm doing it here in this method. And if I don't find anything, then we just return that your search yielded no results, and we return a 404, which could be questionable. Perhaps we should return a different status on this one, but it is important for me to tell the client whether it's a React application or whatever you're going to build that will use this API, that we didn't return anything, and we need to allow the error handlers to kick in to display something down to the end user one way or another. So that was pretty much it. It's very simple to set up Elasticsearch using the Chewy gem in Ruby on Rails. And again, this API Well, I did reuse a little bit of code from a previous project, so that I had the entire Rails app structure and the testing framework set up. But it was a breeze to set this up once you had it in place. The geocoder is easy to use. You just need to tell the application how to use geocoding, and in this case we're using Google, and we are authorizing the calls using Google Map API key, which is pretty straightforward. Nothing hard there. The Chewy gem needs to have some settings for itself. All of this is very well documented on the website, on the GitHub repository for Chewy. There was a few tweaks that I had to use. So if you attempt to set up Chewy, feel free to look through my code. This is open source, so sorry. So that's perfectly fine. If you are on an OS X computer like I am on a MacBook, then you need to install Elasticsearch using Brew. If you're using Linux or Windows, I honestly don't know what you need to do, but you need to have Elasticsearch installed on your local host, or you have to Dockerize it or install it, run it using Docker. But that is also explained in their documentation, so that should be pretty okay. On Heroku, I'm using an extension, an add-on on Heroku that is called Bonsai, which deals with Elasticsearch. And trust me when I say this was one-click operation. The only thing I needed to do on Heroku was to add it, basically. So if we go to resources, I added Bonsai Elasticsearch. Didn't have to do any configuration, nothing. It was all good. Everything worked out of the box. And I think that's the beauty of the Chewy gem. I know that my previous experiences with using other gems, other wrappers for Rails demanded me to do more configuration. Here, nothing. Just install this one and you're ready to rock and roll, which was pretty amazing. What else? Right, the testing. Let's talk a little bit about the testing. Nothing super hard. If you look at my tests, let's see if we go to where do we go? Spec, right? Spec folder. I have some request specs for this. Hi Verena, how you doing? I'm just doing a talk through on a Rails API that I built yesterday with Elasticsearch to search for results, and I just hit the topic of testing. So the type of tests that I usually write are called request specs if I'm dealing with an API. Sorry. So let's start with the service index spec. That's a very simple one. The first thing I do when I set up this test is to make sure that the services import service is being run. However, in my test environment, I'm preventing this service to actually hit the API. I am mocking the response. I will talk a little briefly about that in just a second. But this line of code just makes sure that we actually have something to show for our users, even in test environment. Then I'm making a GET request to this URL that you saw me make a GET request to in Postman in live on the live server. We expect this response to have HTTP status of 200, which means that everything is okay. And then I also expect this response to contain 337 entries, because I know beforehand that there are 337 entries in the database, because that's what my fixture tells me. And that's pretty basic, very simple test, nothing in particular. What we are doing here in our test setup, this is a file called Rails helper, which is a setup for our testing framework to know how it's supposed to behave, basically. Sorry. And so what I'm doing here is that I am stubbing out the two routes to the KCSC API that is looking for come on, give me a break. That we're using in that import service, the self-care or all and self-care addresses. I mentioned that briefly in when I went over the import service in itself, and we are pointing our test environment to. We're basically saying this to our test environment: if the system or the application tries to make a call to a URL that contains this regex, this percentage sign .r means that this is a regular expression. And if that happens, do not make that request. Just return status 200 and a body that you will get from this particular file. It's a JSON file that contains the response with organization's data. And then if the system tries to make a call to a URL that contains this regex, you just return KCSC API response addresses JSON. Do not make that call for real. And also, just for the sake of it, just so we are consistent, if we are trying to hit this maps.googleapis.com website, which we do when we geocode our content, our objects, then just respond with some dummy data, because in test environment it doesn't really matter if it's the right or wrong latitude and longitude. So by doing these three things, we basically fake those responses, and we get a test suite that is pretty fast, and that's pretty neat. And the last test that took a little longer to hammer out, but not that super long, was the search endpoint. Now, in this one, we had to do a little bit more of setup. So let me talk you through this one. On line 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, we are basically creating 6 different services. We're not using the import service for anything. We want it to be in control of the data that our database has at that very moment. So in this case, we created 3 services that contain the word boy in one way or another, in the name, in the description, and in the email. So we have Boy Scouts, we help boys come to terms, and then boys will be boys@mail.com in the email. And then we created 2 other services that didn't contain the word boys. And so in the setup further, we are resetting the services index so that the Elasticsearch service knows that it needs to start afresh. So whatever we had on the index needs to be purged, and we need to recreate it, which is basically what we are doing in this before block. And then we have a describe block. You want to make a successful search, so you're making a post request to the API search, which is what you saw me do in Postman, and the query parameter that we're sending in is boy, and that should also result in a 200 response. Nothing extraordinary there. And the only thing I'm testing for here is that the response JSON services, the JSON response that we actually get from this endpoint, contains 3 objects. And how do I know that? Well, because I just created 3 services that contains the word boys, or boy, or a variant thereof. So we know that we have 5 services in the database, but only 3 of them will be returned based on this particular query. And if we do a bad query, again, we make a post request to the same endpoint. The query we send in is called toast, and that should result in a 404 and the message saying your search yielded no results, which is exactly what we are telling our controller to do if that is supposed to happen or not. And again, if we look at the testing strategy, it's very simple, nothing extraordinary. We're just doing the same things that we would do if we were to do manual testing, as I did in Postman. So again, if I want to search for toast, I don't know if that will actually yield a result. Oh, it actually did. In the real database. SMART is a charity supporting people affected by mental illness and their path to recovery. Light, popcorn, Saturday's cooked meal, roast. Okay, so it does the fuzzy logic thing on the word toast to roast. You can question whether that is good or bad, but that's the ruling. That's a corner case in my opinion. Anyway, so we did yield at least one result. So that's the spirit, folks. Rapid application development. I started this in the morning. I took a few meetings in between, a lot of phone calls, and hammered away on this API and got this fixed. The tests that I just showed you are, of course, just part of the whole thing. We did write a test to check for the serializer, whether the data is properly formatted, which is a prudent thing to do. And I also did a model spec for this service, which is not very extensive. This is more of a regression kind of testing to just make sure that the database contains the right data, or the right structure, the right columns, and so on. And also that we have a valid factory, which is a way to create fake objects in your other tests. So this is just a little bit of a setup thing. And if you're new to testing, I can tell you that RSpec in Ruby on Rails is a fantastic testing suite, very intuitive, in my opinion. Once you get used to it, you can read it out as English. I mean, expect create service to be valid. It's almost a sentence like expression. It is like this one. It is expected to have database column name of type string. It couldn't get any clearer than that, in my opinion. So definitely dive into RSpec if you want to get started in testing. And if Rails feels a bit too much for you, then I feel sorry for you. Because Rails is a fantastic framework, but there is an alternative, of course, that you can look into, and that is Mocha and Chai if you do a lot of JavaScript development. So if you do Node.js or what have you, Mocha and Chai, those two libraries, they play very well together, and the syntax is almost identical to Ruby, apart from being JavaScript, of course. But you have your describe blocks and your it blocks and so on. So that's what I did yesterday, and this work will, apart from me having fun, and I do enjoy coding, this will be a base for me to formulate a proposal to this council, this service council, or city. What is it called again? It's called social council, right? Keep forgetting. And see if we can pull this project into Agile Ventures as a paid project, and work on that, and build a nice interface for our client that does not feel like 1998 like this one, but follow some modern design standards, and creates an appealing website or service for the residents and professionals in Kensington and Chelsea. So that's about it. Any questions on Elasticsearch or anything that I covered in this presentation? Then fire away, people. I will make sure that you get access to this particular code base. Feel free to explore. It is open source, so don't worry about stealing anything. If you use it for something interesting, let me know. I'm always eager to hear about that. We are using a continuous integration service on this one. So if we go to semaphore.ci.com, we should be able to find this guy. Here, is it Craft Academy? Right, where's my projects? Oh, I don't know where it is. Why not? Let's go to pull requests. Close. Or did I set up? I think I set it up. Perhaps I didn't. No, I didn't. I didn't set up Semaphore yet. Shit, I thought I did. Well, there you go. I did not. I should probably do it. And it is deployed to using Heroku. So it's a very fast setup process. If you haven't used Heroku, let me know and I can talk you through it someday. So that's about the project. That's about it. Right, and I think that should conclude our community follow-up. Now, it wasn't much of Q&A, so you have 5 minutes. I'm already 30 minutes over time, so you have 5 minutes to ask me questions, because I'm gonna end this stream half past the top of the hour. We already mentioned the summer school or the summer camp. We already mentioned the streamers. Verena, I was just telling people to follow you in on Twitch, and spoke highly about your commitment to Flutter. Perhaps if I may ask you, actually, Verena, I understand that you had a chance to interact with another member of the community to get the Firebase things under control. I don't know if you can say a few words about that, if that worked out okay for you. Perhaps you're not around, but I think that this is the kind of interaction that I would love to promote more. He helped you a lot. That's great. That's awesome. So Agile Ventures is all about that, in my opinion, connecting people to each other on big things or small things. Hopefully code related, but if you have anything else on your mind, that's also good. We're here to support each other. One thing that is striking, that if you feel alone in your coding, there is always somebody else that has had the same problem as you or faced similar stuff, and you can reach out for help and connect with somebody that has the expertise, very specific expertise that you need. And in this case, Mirsad or Cyrus Zay was able to help Verena, and I'm very happy about that. By the way, she's working on some pretty cool projects. I don't know, are your work open sourced, the stuff that you're working on as a side project, or is it proprietary? It would be nice to be able to look through some code, but I do understand that sometimes you want to close source stuff. Not yet. Okay, perhaps some other day. Well, I could always argue against that. That doesn't have to work if before you share it, but that's a side discussion. It's we can take that at some point when we see each other, not me talking, you chatting. Right, guys, I'll be back on Friday with another follow-up, and and Q&A session. If there's anything you want to know about the projects that we are working on, just let me know. Today I chose to do a talk through on this process of submitting a proposal and running some experiments, and focusing on Elasticsearch in Ruby on Rails. I hope you found that interesting one way or another, and if you do, that's fantastic. If you don't, then just suggest a better topic for me to talk about. But it will cover it for me right now. Thank you guys for following along. I will be seeing you sorry, on Friday. Thank you. So long.